On this International Women's Day, a group of Canadian Afghan women are launching a bold campaign called Do Not Touch My Clothes. It features 10 women in modern Afghan clothing, and it's meant to draw attention to the plight of women in Afghanistan still living under Taliban rule. Joining us now to discuss this campaign is community activist Nilo Mansouri and makeup artist Sabrina Wassel. Thanks to both of you, and happy International Women's Day. Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy International Women's Day. Thank you so much for having us, and as always to CP24 for extending their platform to our community.
Well, we appreciate you coming on to share this story. Nilo, let's start with talking about the inspiration behind this campaign, the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. What is it like being a woman living under Taliban rule today?
Well, thank you for the question. Right now, what we're seeing in Afghanistan is a continuation of the struggles that have been imposed on women for the past 40 years. This past August, the Taliban regime took over, and women continue to struggle, and they're fighting, to get equal rights to that of men in the country. So what's at stake here essentially is a freedom of expression, and in every way possible, the Taliban regime is trying to limit those freedoms and basically remove women outside of the public sphere.
Sabrina, part of this campaign includes the phrase, "There is freedom in our clothing." This really spoke to me. It's so powerful. Say more about what this means.
Basically, first of all, thank you so much for having us today. This means the world to us. We really don't get to see Afghan women to be on a platform like this. You always see an Afghan woman in a burqa that is usually imposed on them out of their freedom, right? So to have freedom in our clothing it means so much, because our clothing, it symbolizes so much of our culture, from our ancestors, from everything that we stand for. So it's not just a piece of clothing, it really is so much more than that.
And you mentioned freedom of choice when it comes to clothing. Explain what's happening under Taliban rule.
Well, basically right now, they have no freedom of choice. And by the Taliban stripping away the clothing, it's also stripping away their freedom and in a way taking away our culture. So that's why this campaign that we started is to shed some light on that, because it's a great opportunity to bring the Afghan women in their fight and their constant battle just to be free in terms of freedom of speech, freedom of what they wear. To others, it may seem like it's just clothing, but like I said, it's so much more than that. It's so much deeper.
So, Neil, this campaign, I have to say it's stunning. It draws on a 1960s feature of Afghanistan in Vogue. Talk to us a bit about the creative process here. How did these pictures come to life?
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention our incredible team, who this project would not have been possible without. Our amazing designer, Salma from Nas Designs, who put her heart and soul into every piece and took into consideration the different elements and cultural traditions of importance that go into each one of these outfits. So for those who may not know, Afghanistan is a country of many regions, several provinces, and each of them are very unique in each of their different ways. So Sabrina and I had actually thought of this project long before COVID, but we had to pause it because of the pandemic. When the humanitarian crisis happened, we thought that we would sort of readjust the campaign to advocate for women in Afghanistan. So our creative process originally was tied to advocating for Afghan women in that we don't want our story to be a story of women who are constantly seen as oppressed. There's so much more to our stories, and those stories are told through things that may seem as small as clothing, but actually have an incredible impact on our culture and our tradition and ultimately our identity.
Sabrina, there are the dresses, the jewelry, and of course the makeup, and that's your role here. Tell us a bit about your creative process.
Oh, where do I even begin? Because we have, like Neil said, we have so many beautiful regions, and there's not a specific makeup look you can't really pinpoint a specific region to a makeup look. So my whole idea, the vision that I really had that I wanted to bring to the table was just really to focus on bringing and enhancing that natural beauty that everyone really has, and to showcase that. So obviously we had a lot of fun. There's so many colors, so many designs in these outfits that are stunning, but the whole focus is really more on to make it more Vogue-like, to make it more magazine-worthy. So it's, the response is, as positive as we can get, but it's really the natural beauty that I wanted to lead the team to enhance their natural beauty.
Nilu, you mentioned the stories. Tell us about the models, who they are, what stories they're wanting to share through these photos.
Well, our models are an incredible group of women from the GTA, as well as our creative team. So one really interesting aspect of this was bringing allies on board who were also wanting to advocate for the women of Afghanistan during this time. Our models actually represent each of the regions they're from, and we regret that we can't, because of the pandemic, we were limited to the amount of people we could bring into the studio at the time, so we couldn't really showcase every single region of the country, and it's actually virtually impossible to do so because of the numerous tribes and villages across the country. So our designer actually implemented different parts and different elements of regions and provinces in the clothing, and our incredible models, each one of them are, again, from Toronto and across the GTA, and they came and they supported along with their teams of hair and makeup artists. And one thing I really want to note is that the fight so far for Afghan women have really been limited to things like, protests, civil protests, but this is a form of protest through art. And I think it's something that may be unconventional, but still draws attention to the issues that are happening back home.
And I want to ask about, the world watching right now, another humanitarian crisis unfold, this one in Ukraine, of course. Sabrina, Canada welcoming an unlimited number of Ukrainians on a temporary basis, but this new immigration policy does not apply to Afghans or other refugees. How do you feel about this?
I mean, it's hard to answer that because right now my heart is with Ukraine. I think that the Afghan people really can connect and understand and be empathetic to the struggle of what they're going through right now. So it's something that's super unfortunate, and our heart goes out to everybody in Ukraine. And as a Canadian, as an Afghan who's living here, obviously we have, I'm welcoming everybody with open arms, but I do wish that the same was for Afghan women and families.
We so appreciate you both coming on and sharing this campaign with us. Happy International Women's Day to both of you.